either the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill or Winston-Salem State University, where she will study nursing to become a general nurse practitioner. And here, attending the meeting with Janaea today is her Learning Community Superintendent, Dr. Raymond Barnes, her Assistant Principal, Paula Cook, her multi-classroom leader extraordinaire, Kevin Poirier, and her aunt, Shanita Sanders, and her cousin, Jay Miche Patterson. So thank you all for being here tonight, and Janaea, take it away.
Board members and audience, will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You have some words for us about perseverance?
Yeah. Thank you all for selecting me to be the pledge leader at tonight's Board of Education meeting. This month's character trait is perseverance. Perseverance is the continuous effort and ability to achieve a goal despite the difficulties and obstacles that sometimes get in one's way. Perseverance is maintaining optimism and staying committed to the things that you want to accomplish. At West Charlotte High School, students maintain a growth perspective and are encouraged to turn their mistakes and circumstantial downfalls into something positive or something they will be able to learn. It is critical for students to persevere through obstacles, big and small. Perseverance is about learning through the process and the effort of a situation. Perseverance recognizes that there is learning to be had in the effort, in the process of continuing to fight, work, and continue to show up, even after a loss or a defeat. I believe that perseverance is the key to my success. Perseverance helped me understand the values of hard work and what success looks like. Perseverance is self-taught, not given or earned. Being perseverant guided me down the path to accomplish many goals and become the strong young lady I am today, despite having lost my mother to domestic violence when I was 5 years old. I know that I'll be faced with failure or disappointment in my life. If I walk away and stop striving for my goals, I would never know the person I will become through the effort of it. Two quotes that remind me of perseverance are, never give up on what you really want to do. The person with big dreams is more powerful than the one with all the facts, by H. Jackson Brown. And failure keeps you humble, success keeps you glowing, but only faith and determination keeps you going, by Nalish Shakla. I want to thank you all for having me.
Thank you. Well, before we move on with the agenda, I just want to recognize that in the audience tonight are members of the League of Women Voters Civics 101 class. So I just want to acknowledge all of you. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we shall now move on to the public hearings. We have one public hearing scheduled for tonight on proposed revisions to policy CFDA, school-based decision-making. And seeing that there are no speakers for this hearing, I declare it to be closed. Now we'll move on to requests from the public. The rules are as follows for the requests from the public. Each speaker will have a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board. You may speak on any topic of your choice except for either individual student matters or specific personnel matters. Personal attacks are not permitted. No profanity or similarly inappropriate language is permitted. The board reserves the right to cut off any speaker who violates these rules. And I now call the following individuals to come on down front to the microphones at the podiums, and please speak in the order in which I call you. So we have got Robert Gannon, Marianne Gaffney, and Heather McAfee. That's perfect. All right, Mr. Gannon.
3 minutes. Got it. Good evening. My name is Rob Gannon. I'm a resident of the Old Providence neighborhood for about 13 years, and I'm here tonight because I'm concerned about the proposal for building a high school on the Old Providence Elementary site. I have 2 children currently in 2nd and 6th grade who will both be directly affected by this. One immediately by the construction right outside her elementary school. The second, actually both of them, more importantly, will be probably prospective students of this high school when it's completed. I'm here with other parents who are all equally concerned and have joined the Building School Equity and Preserving Green Space Community Committee. And like all of you, we have a vested interest in ensuring that the plan for such a high school is worthwhile and an equitable plan. So I'd like to take a minute to talk about equity and how it relates to this proposal for a high school. But first, we'd like to acknowledge and thank you for stopping the preliminary work that started at the OP site, the preliminary work to see if that land could even support a large high school. We also enjoyed being able to attend Superintendent Winston's presentation at the Ballantine Breakfast Club meeting this past Saturday and talking with him afterwards. His presentation was very informative and engaging, and we fully support his focus on equity, supporting every student in every school, and providing each with what he or she needs to be successful and enjoy their school experience. The board's own equity policy, which was revised in May, states that a number of factors influence success for all students: school composition, educational opportunities, student wellness, school facilities, human resources, leadership and staff, and family and community engagement. Equitable experiences, success for all students. Recently, some plans for building new high schools have been proposed and discussed. There's a plan for a new West Charlotte High School, which will house 1,400 students and be built on 46 acres. It'll consist of an abundant number of classrooms, ample parking, football stadium, tennis courts, baseball and softball fields, practice fields, which can be used by teams, regular students at physical education and other endeavors, and even local residents. There's a plan for a new Palisades High School, which will house 3,000 students and be built on 85 acres. Also, sufficient number of classrooms, football stadium, tennis courts, baseball, softball fields, again, to be enjoyed by teams, regular students, and local community. 1,400 students, 46 acres. 3,000 students, 85 acres. The proposed plan for the high school to be built on the OP site will also house 3,000 students, but it will be built on less than 30 acres.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to, okay, there's the timer. Okay. I interrupted you if you want to take a couple more seconds.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure the timer was working because I can't see it working here.
Okay, so I was sorry about that. Okay. So it'll be less than 30 acres. It'll have 125 classrooms, but I'm not sure what else. I'm not sure what else could actually fit on that small site. Okay. How is this equitable to those 3,000 students? How is that fair?
Thank you, Mr. Gannon. And so, Madam Clerk, I just want to check. So you do, the timer is working because I see funny numbers here. Okay, great. All right, thank you. So, Ms. Gaffney.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Marianne Gaffney, and I too would like to thank the board for halting the work at OP. I too represent the Building School Equity and Preserving Green Space Community Committee. Our first meeting took place on Sunday, September 29th, and over 100 people attended. We have a Facebook page and website. Our petition to preserve the green space behind OP is sitting at close to 1,700 signatures. We are a large, dedicated group of community members who wish to work with the board, ensuring that the best decision is made to equitably support our students and community. Here we focus on challenges to the OP site. The first challenge is the location. The site is located a considerable distance from the Audrey-Kell sending area. Audrey-Kell is the smallest district geographically and the most crowded. Audrey-Kell opened in 2006, designed for 1,900 students. Today, we serve 3,400 students. This puts us at 175% capacity. The Ballantyne Golf Course just sold and is zoned for between 2,000 and 3,000 units. The Ballantyne Corporate Center is building an apartment complex with 212 residential units. South Charlotte is growing. Audrey-Kell lasted perhaps 5 years before it became overcrowded. OP is a residentially defined site. Once the school is built, it can't get any bigger. You can't expand it. The second challenge is traffic. 80% of the traffic on Ray Road moves in the same direction that students and buses coming from the Audrey-Kell South Meck sending area would need to travel. Ray Road is already backed up because of several two-lane sections that cannot be expanded. Information supplied by CDOT explains that the just completed Ray Road expansion project took 3 years and cost $19 million. The road cannot be widened any further. The third challenge is parking. Research on parking structures shows costs can run about 20% of an entire budget. If you're talking about $110 million, you're talking about $20 million for a parking structure. Charlotte Catholic built their parking structure in 2015 and spent $31,000 per parking space. There is land available now in South Charlotte, land the district could secure to build a fully comprehensive high school that allowed room for growth, where students could drive or bus to school safely in a reasonable amount of time, and where a significant amount of money would be spent on students and not on parking. We wish to work with you, explore all options, and do what is right for students now and 50 years from now. To look forward out of our windshields to the future of CMS, the future of South Charlotte students, and the future of a city that truly believes the students are the most important people in the building and on the outside of the building. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gaffney. All right, Ms. McAfee.
Hi, my name is Heather McAfee. I'm a parent of a child at Elon Park Elementary, Community House Middle School, and Audrey-Kell High School. First, I want to say thanks to the school board, the superintendent, and the CMS staff who work every day tirelessly for our children. And a special shout out to those who were able to come to the Ballantyne Breakfast Club event on Saturday. As you just heard, Audrey-Kell's utilization rate is 175% utilization and is the most overcrowded high school in the school district. Community House has a utilization of 163%, which makes it the most overcrowded middle school in the district and the largest middle school in the state of North Carolina. For both these schools, we have amazing administration and staff, which makes these schools some of the best in CMS and arguably in the state. But again, we are the most overcrowded schools in the district, and we are continually hearing about more and more building that is happening in our area that's zoned for Community House and AK. For example, as you just heard, Northwood has announced that they are building a new development with 2,200 new residences, and then last week we heard of another apartment high-rise. Along with Northwood, there are other developments that are happening in our area. And these developments will only add to our overcrowding issue and make it worse. I was able to talk with the superintendent on Saturday, and we discussed that there was a tipping point when it comes to overcrowding. We are dangerously getting to that point, and these new building developments do not help. Please don't let us get to that tipping point. I have 2 things for you to think about. First, I know you're contemplating a location for the new 2017 Bond High School for South Charlotte. Please consider the students at AK and create relief for them. I realize that you want to utilize land that CMS owns, but Old Providence is too far away from AK. It doesn't make sense. Please think creatively and outside of the box in your solutions, and think of AK students. Second, Community House has no relief in sight. It was at the top of the bond options for the 2017 bond and was passed over. Please work with county commissioners on creating a creative solution. I know you're thinking about creating another bond, but that won't help for potentially another 8 years, if we're lucky. And we need to find creative solutions quickly. Lastly, please reach out to us, as we're more than happy to help you help our schools. Together, we can make positive changes to help with our overcrowding. Please think of each student in these overcrowded schools of Audrey Kell and Community House. We do not want to reach the tipping point.
Thank you, Ms. McAfee.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. We will now move on to the consent items. Is there a motion that the board approve the consent items?
So moved. Second.
All right, before we move to a vote, does any board member wish to pull any part of this item for individual consideration? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion to approve the consent items, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. All right, Madam Clerk, the motion is adopted by a vote of 8-0. And Mr. Superintendent, would you like to speak to your appointments?
Thank you, Vice Chair Dashew. This evening, I have the pleasure of introducing Ms. Felicia Walker Cooper, who is the current assistant principal at Villa Heights Elementary School. She has also served as an assistant principal at Lawrence Orr Elementary, as well as Highland Renaissance. In addition to that, she served as a literacy facilitator, literacy coach, dean of students, and coach at various schools in CMS and in Ohio. Will you please join me in congratulating Ms. Walker Cooper on becoming the new principal of Piney Grove Elementary School?
Thank you. I am so excited about joining the Piney Grove family. I am honored to serve that community and just look forward to the great work that we will do together. I have here with me my husband, Lawrence Cooper, and my son, Jeremiah Cooper. Thank you so much.
Next, I'd like to ask Aquanetta Edmond to please stand. Ms. Edmond currently serves as the Executive Director of the Central 2 Learning Community. She has also served as an Executive Director in the South and the former Central Learning Communities, as well as Principal, Assistant Principal, Principal Intern, and Teacher in Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. Please join me in congratulating Ms. Edmond on becoming the new Northwest Learning Community Superintendent.
Pleasure, and I'm honored at this opportunity and so excited about the work that we're going to dive into in the Northwest Learning Community. And so I'm definitely looking forward to all that will await me. Tonight I have with me my husband, Clavy Edmond. So he is joining me. Our son couldn't be here tonight, so we dragged his fiance in, Lori. Lori had the pleasure of joining us. He is stationed in California. He's in the Marine Corps. And of course, they were recently engaged. She too is a teacher here in Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. In addition to that, my other family, Tara Sullivan, Crystal Shue, and all of the other community
technology. With that said, we'll jump right in with a quick overview of the department's organizational structure. You have the office of the CTO, my office, and within that office we have program management, we have a data operations team, of course I have an executive director, and our project management services live there. We have three primary departments within technology services. We have student applications and web development, we have an information systems and support group, and we have a business systems team. So I'll share some highlights about what each of those teams do as we go forward. This is a quick reference to what each of our groups do. We manage out of my office some of the global enterprise level things. Our information systems and support team manages our schools and everything that touches the schoolhouse and our students and staff. Our web development team is very much as it sounds. They develop the web and our student information system. And our business systems team manages the back office and keeping the district running. So, out of my office, student devices, we'll jump right in. We currently have 125,000 students on any given day using Chromebooks in our schools. We have students grades 3 through 12 that are one-to-one in our district. Students younger than that are typically using shared iPads. We have 30-plus schools participating in our Chromebook Take-Home program, where we allow the students to sign out their Chromebook, use it for the entire year, and check it back in at the end of the year. We've deployed Chromebooks to schools mostly in carts of 30. There's about 4,800 of those carts out in the district today. Chromebook allocation is based on enrollment. We use an N+60 model where we have one Chromebook for every student enrolled. Then we typically add an extra 60 Chromebooks into every school for spares because they break or need some service. And then we true those numbers up based on our 20-day enrollment count every year, which is a typical number, as you all know, for when we true up our enrollments. The secondary program is the G Suite for Education. And for those of you that don't know what G Suite is, that's the Google Suite for Education. It provides us Google Drive, Google Storage, Google Docs, all the different things that our students use every day in class. This year alone, we've created 25 million files in the Google Drive. That's a huge number to think of, but if you break those down over previous years, that's triple the number of files that we've created in every year prior to this year. So our usage rate is going through the roof. How are we getting there? Of course, I told you about 125,000 Chromebooks used every day. We actually have 143,000 deployed, so there's always additional, as I said, Chromebooks available for everybody. When one breaks, as I mentioned, we have 60 spares in each school. We have about an 8-day turnaround to repair those Chromebooks. There's 2 days of transit on either end and about 4 days in the middle to get the Chromebook processed and repaired. We'll go into some more of that a little later on. We also have 15 certified Google trainers now in our schools, which is a very large number for any school district, even one of our size. We also have 150 plus certified Google educators, and most of those people are doing this certification on their own time outside of their regular school hours. So it's an amazing number for us to have reached. Another platform we have is the Canvas system, which is learning management system. To date, we have 5,000 complete courses in Canvas, and a complete course is a start to finish. Teacher can download it. It's vetted. It's standards aligned course. Those have been facilitated by over 3,000 of our teachers in the district. We have about 128,000 active student logins in Canvas, which is 2.5 times more than we had at this time last year. So our usage there has been going up exponentially as well. We have 385,000 plus assignments currently out, and students have turned in almost 1.5 million responses to those assignments in our Canvas system. 31,000 active discussions at any given time. That's our students discussing topics with their teachers. How do I do this? I need support with that. All the different discussions that they do. 31,000 active discussions at any time. We have 2 million files that our students have created and uploaded, and nearly 30,000 videos they've done as work product delivery back into their classrooms. Again, just amazing numbers for that investment in time and professional development. Another large program out of my office is the 1 Million Project. I know many of you on the board have heard of this project before. This is our opportunity, working with Sprint as a partner, to give free Wi-Fi access to any high school student that needs it. My department runs that program, and to date, the numbers you see on the screen are from last year. We've actually done about 2,000 more already this year, so we're actually about 7,500 of these, and I have about 3,000 more to give out each year. Each year, I can give out up to 5,000 free Wi-Fi hotspots with over 10 gigs of monthly data available to them to any CMS high school student. It's an amazing program that's worth millions of dollars to the district. It's a fantastic grant. Lastly, my office is very concerned with online student safety. So we deploy a system called Dino that allows us to manage student use of technology in the classroom. Essentially, we roster with Dino so we know exactly where a student is throughout the day, what class they're in, what teacher they have. That gives that teacher the ability to whitelist or block access to particular sites. They can monitor the student devices in real time without having to walk behind them and look at what their screens are doing. They get a thumbnail shot of their screens. built a Facebook-like timeline of what they're doing through the day, and teachers can go back and track that. Find out we're watching too much March Madness, we can block ESPN, get back on task, right? So it's great. And it allows us to go back later and analyze student activity. It also has a really neat feature where students can self-select if they aren't understanding a particular topic. It's a lot less intrusive than raising your hand and admitting you don't understand something. So it's a fantastic system that we run globally out of my office. Our largest group is the Information Systems and Support Group. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the team that really is where the rubber meets the road. These guys and women are on the road every day. They're in our schools. They're working directly with our teachers and our students. They run our help desk. They run our networks. We'll go into some details about what all this does. But they are really the front line and the face of the technology department throughout the district. Some of them are in the booth behind me right now. The help desk has received over 22,000 support requests last school year. They supported over calls for support. They supported over 51,000 trouble tickets that came in, requests for support. They've updated their software recently to streamline the customer service experience, and the entire group went to the Help Desk Institute and became certified in a set of standards and practices that are all around customer service in the help desk operation. They also provide extra support for programs like the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools. They do these extra support tasks in the summertime when our students and teachers aren't on board, and we have some extra cycles over there, so they'll help out. And I'll give an example of something else they've worked on pretty recently coming up here. We have a network and voice over internet protocol team. They do what you think they might do. They manage our network. They manage our voice over IP phones. There's over 4,500 network switches in our district, in the closets in the schools, distributing connectivity. And we have 16,000 wireless access points throughout the district, providing wireless coverage to every student, everywhere, in every building. That team resolved over 1,200 of their own tickets last year, and they configure and replace these network pieces of equipment through the year. We did about 3,000 access points last year and another 300 or so network devices. We've also been busily upgrading our connectivity to the schools. We were at 100 megabits to each school. We've upgraded every school, with the exception of one or two where we've got some geographic issues, to 1 gigabyte fiber, and a few of our larger high schools, think Ardrey-Kell that we heard about earlier tonight, to 2 gigs connectivity. We have about 60 gigs of internet connectivity to the internet, so we are able to provide that high level of connectivity to our schools. Voice over IP team did 3,000 handsets, and they manage about 10,000 phones and 5,000 mailboxes. So again, we do everything kind of to scale here. It's a pretty amazing operation. Our school support, this is truly the front line. Our systems engineers, they serviced 20,000 support tickets last year. They managed the 143,000, nearly 150,000 Chromebooks that we have in the district, 6,000 Windows devices, 15,000 Apple devices. They just really are out there in the field keeping things running each and every day. They also serve as the project leads in their building. Each building does not have a systems engineer. They're assigned to a group of buildings, and they float between as needed. They do things also when they're not doing that, like upgrading our configuration manager that helps us move faster and do more automation. A hardware depot. This is where when something breaks, they send it back to Santa's workshop to get it fixed, and that's the hardware depot. Last year, they completed 13,000 Chromebook repairs. They fixed over 900 Windows devices. They replaced 75 uninterruptible power supplies, which is a big battery backups that we run in our closets to keep things running when the power goes out. They refurbished and upgraded 500 HP laptops. We use those as spares, so when somebody's laptop goes down, we have a spare for them that they can borrow, so no teachers without a laptop when they need one. They also started a program where they're harvesting parts from 1,800 surplus devices, so we're recycling things. So if we have a device with a broken screen but a good keyboard, we'll take that keyboard and save it. It keeps it out of the landfill, keeps our costs down a lot too. So that's a program they started at the hardware depot. We have an AV team. They themselves resolved over 5,000 AV tickets last year. They replaced 1,500 projector bulbs. We're not a big fan of projectors anymore, and we're trying to go to a panel-based system because they're more reliable and stable. So we did 900 new interactive Promethean panels last year. They did 450 wiring team tickets where we had some broken cabling or had to move a port somewhere. We had to connect over 50 mobile classrooms. So once the operations team brings a mobile classroom in and sets it down, we come in behind them and get it all connected to the internet and the network. We also managed upgrades and installations at 35 sites last year. This team also manages the refresh of our technology throughout the district. Last year, we did 4,000 devices to all our teachers. We also did almost 3,000 devices to our administrative staff. We refreshed 15,000 of our Chromebook fleet, and in the last 2 years, we've replaced 7,500 iPads with another 3,000 or so on the books for this next couple of months. This team also was the team that hands out the hotspots that we talked about earlier, so they coordinated and managed the distribution of these 7,500 hotspots. We've also implemented a new software inventory package, which is a really big deal because now we're allowed to assign devices to people as opposed to devices to locations. So that's what allows us to assign a Chromebook to a student and let them keep it for the whole year so we know who has what and we can get it back. They manage this system. It has over 200,000 assets in it. It's pretty amazing. The network infrastructure that we talked about earlier that gets upgraded is also funded. We did 57 schools last year using federal E-rate funds. They work to keep our schools safe as well, too. This last year, we took over management of the lobby guard system that many of you have seen and heard and used in our schools. They used to be managed individually at the schools, and we realized that was not the best practice, so technology has taken them under our wing now. We provide centralized management of all stations, so when you go to a school, you have the same look and feel, one school to the next to the next. We have standard configurations. We can add now additional stations for surges, so when we have that first week back to school and everybody wants to walk their child down to the classroom, we can set up 5 or 6 or 7 Chromebooks and use those to log in the lobby guard system as well, too, because we've put up this centralized management structure. We also provide centralized support via our help desk now as well, too, and we've standardized on the identification requirements that it is to get into one of our schools. That is, what type of ID do I need to show when I get in? Every system is now the same. Every school is now the same. We also have the Helios system. This is a voice-over IP intercom system. I'm sure most of you have probably seen that. When you come up to one of our schools, there's a little camera by the door. You push the button. It interconnects to our phone system via the voice-over IP network, allows the front office administration to see who's at the door visibly on their phone, interact with them verbally, and then it ties into our electronic locking system so they can push a button and unlock the door and let that visitor in. So that requires us to work closely with the operations group. Again, we maintain a standard configuration, and in a few of our buildings, think like Governor's Village, where we have a really large building with multiple entrances, we've added a few of these systems so that visitors don't all have to go to one place to get into the building. Next group is our student applications and web development team. This team is responsible for PowerSchool, maintaining and managing PowerSchool. They integrate all the applications that we have. They do our student rostering. They review our vendors' technology. And most importantly, or one of the most important things they do is maintain data privacy and confidentiality. So this group has its own help desk as well, too. They did over 13,000 requests last year. They also do a lot of training for our school-based staff. That would be registrars. That would be front office staff that are dealing with students in PowerSchool, teachers in PowerSchool. In total, we did 462 hours of training last year, which resulted in 5,500 hours of received training from our staff. They support student grade storage, report cards, attendance, student registration. They validate graduations. So it's a small group, but you can see they carry a heavy lift in this school system. It's pretty amazing work, as I know I keep saying that word, but it's fantastic work they do. So what we do every day is we have 84 integrations, data integrations that happen on a nightly basis, and these are some of our partners that Mr. Kingsley over here has us working with. These are our educational partners. They all require some sort of data feed from us on a nightly basis, whether it's rostering data or student information or push-pull data. We have to share that data with these partners. And there's more than this. I just put some examples up. We have to do that every night. So this student apps team is responsible for making sure that's done in a thoughtful, safe, and secure way. Oops, one too far, sorry. So how do they do that? They ensure that we vet and hold accountable our data sharing partners and vendors. They manage the periodic data sharing. They ensure bidirectional encryption, so as we're moving files back and forth, we're not just emailing things around. These are very intentional encryption standards that are used in place there. And they would respond to any potential data leakage by becoming the forensic arm. So if one of our partners were to call us and say, hey, we've had a data leakage, this team would spring into action to mitigate that leakage and provide forensics. Next, I have our business systems team. And this team handles our Kronos system, our Lawson system, which is from Infor. Lawson is our enterprise resource planning system, which is, in English, our financial and HR systems, right? It's the back end of our finance systems and our payroll and our HR systems. That's the Lawson ERP system. They run business process improvement for that system. They do a roadmap for future upgrades and requirements. They do any kind of software upgrades. Kronos is our system for timekeeping. So when you punch in and out, if you're an hourly employee, if you go around our buildings, you'll see these gray boxes on the wall everywhere where you punch in and out your time. They do that, and they manage things like Crystal Report upgrades through SAP. Any of that kind of work that's tied to kind of the back-end business systems of running an organization our size, this team handles that. They also handle software development and support, so we're actually writing code to upgrade the system and make changes to it. They have about 30 annual business processes they manage. Think things like open enrollment every December as we're getting ready for our new year of benefits, or when we're doing our financial closeouts at the end of the year with Sheila's department. Any of those type of annual business processes that are reoccurring, this team will support that work. They also take work orders for software updates. And just like our student apps team, we have a lot of data interfaces in different places that we share data out of our core business teams. Think, again, our benefits providers, our banks, these sorts of things. So they support 100 different data interfaces on a daily basis to make sure that data is flowing around safely and securely. As you might have guessed, they have a help desk, just like everybody else in technology does. They also do a lot of training. They trained about 150 school-based staff last year. They processed 631 requests for access to our financial system. We monitor that very closely, and you get only the level of request required. You can't get authorization above that. We had about 630 of those, and they did about 11,500 support requests with our ERP software. Lastly, this team is responsible for one of the biggest projects we've taken on in nearly 20 years, and that's a business system modernization project. What that means is we are going to be moving away from our Lawson system, which is an on-prem hosted here in a data center, to an Oracle Cloud system, which is a tier 1 top-level financial and HR system. The background behind the project was we had a system that was becoming out of date. It was becoming very difficult to upgrade it. We had a lot of customized processes, which causes human error and makes mistakes. So we need to automate, again, to keep up with the future. The state has teamed up with us to provide a lot of funding on this. They're obviously very interested in Charlotte going first in the state, and they've been a fantastic partner of ours. So we've got about a 2.5-year plan here to upgrade our entire system to the Oracle Cloud. You all will hear lots more about this as we go forward. It's just getting started. We actually just signed the contracts, and we're just moving forward with that within the last few weeks. So you'll hear a lot more about that at the next update, but that's our plan for modernizing our business systems. And with that, I will gladly take any questions.
All right, I saw Ms. Marshall's hand first.
This is pretty amazing. I mean, all these numbers, huge numbers,
We do big
incredible
things.
things that you're doing, and it's organized so well, and you are taking limited resources and organizing them so that they're most efficient for our folks in the system and for our students and their families, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Your team is amazing. I had talked with you about some of this earlier, and our breadth and width with Google in terms of our Chromebook usage and our ability to help Google make some changes even nationwide. Could you speak to that in terms of that relationship?
Yeah, actually, Ken, it's amazing. I had a call with Google just today because A very little known fact about the Chromebooks is they have a shelf life. You buy a Chromebook and the clock is ticking from the day you buy it till it expires. Well, they realized there's problems with that, and I called them a few weeks ago and I said, look, we have 90,000 of these that we're looking at coming to an end-of-life scenario here, and what are you going to do about that? And today not today, and not just because of me, there were lots of different entities calling in, but they announced today that they're going to extend that timeline from the original 5 years now to 8.5 years. And the guy in the conference call when I was talking about it, he says, "Are you from Charlotte by any chance?" I said, "Yes, I actually am." But they actually do listen to us because of our scale. One thing I didn't mention is that number of Chromebooks that we have deployed is actually the largest deployment of Chromebooks on the planet. There is no single entity that has more Chromebooks than CMS. It's pretty amazing.
That's great.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
sure.
Curiously, so all the items, the hotspots and the Chromebooks that we are, that students, particularly in high school, get to use, we're getting those back from our seniors. Those are, I had heard you mention that earlier, that we're able to reassign those to students as they come into our high schools.
That is correct, yeah. And the hotspots, we actually don't require them to give those back. We just deactivate them in October or the following fall. But typically, we get at least half of them back, and then we just reallocate those back in. And I don't include those in the numbers that I put up there because I see those as padding along the way.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
Before I turn to Ms. Cheek, we have some more very important visitors to be acknowledged. We have in the audience Boy Scout Troop 330 from up near the university. So thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for your civic engagement. And one more very important visitor is former board member Trent Merchant, I just realized is here. I believe he has been enlightening the Civics 101 classes to the inner workings of school board. So good to see you, Trent. All right, Ms. Cheek. Oh, okay. Thanks for joining us.
Trent's not allowed to go, though. He was always the longest
Escape while
talker,
you
so he
can.
has to stay the longest. I used to say that Trent gave soliloquies in his speeches at the school board, and he was not allowed more than 10 minutes. So he has to stay longer. And Boy Scouts, thank you for being here. I'm a mom of an Eagle Scout candidate, and I appreciate all of the adults that are here with the boys, because you guys make scouting happen. Stick with it. Get your Eagle Scouts. It looks really, really good on college applications. I'm getting very positive feedback about that. I'm very happy. So stick with that. So Derek, I have a high school student, and he comes home and discusses things that he's doing on Naviance and this and this and this. And I'm usually just kind of going, it's all way beyond me, but it's super exciting to see how much things have changed in 6 years since he started middle school and now finishing high school. Where we are in the curve now is completely different. One thing that, we talk a lot in our market about not having people that are technology trained to go into like financial technology and technology repair type jobs. Are we utilizing or training students in our schools to do some of this technology work? Do you have anything that you can share about some of that work that's going on?
We had not typically been using or training our students, with the exception of a few of our schools, and we'll support them anytime they have the desire. They will set up a Genius Bar or help desk in the school that's often student-run, but to date, we have no programs that are specifically geared towards training students in the future career of technology. Obviously, that's near and dear to my heart. I would gladly help out with that.
So maybe you and I need to talk more then, because I am all about that. I know Kevin Poyer is sitting up there because they are working with E2D, which is Eliminate the Digital Divide, on doing computer training courses so kids learn how to fix computers and upfit donated computers so they can give them out to students. And they just gave out their, how many thousandth? 10,000?
10,000.
10,000th. Yeah, okay. And Pat Millen, thank you. You're Davidson friend up there for all the work they're doing. So I do think that that is something I would love for you to pursue before you come and present to us the next time, is to see how we can work. I see a lot of the work Tark Bukhari's doing with financial technology and his FinTech group that he's doing, and people with that are on government subsidies are being trained, and when they finish this FinTech program are making $65,000 a year. So I think that that's maybe a new wave that we need to look at with our career technical education and what we're providing with our kids, because the jobs are ready and waiting. So thank you. But thank you for everything you're doing. It's having been on this board for 10 years, I don't even know what technology, we had Blackberries when I started, okay? So that's just to give you some perspective. We had Blackberries.
You were going to say blackboards.
We had Blackboards too. That was when I was at South Mech. We did have that. I didn't even know what a Promethean board was when I started, but no, we literally, the school board all had Blackberries. We didn't even have iPhones. So.
You can get on eBay and bring those back if you'd like.
That's okay. I thought it was really cool when it got a color camera on it. It was like really cool. But thank you for everything.
Mr. Strain?
Thank you, Ms. Dashew. First of all, I want to recognize you, Mr. Root, for your contributions to not only our students, but raising the level of technology and technology expertise across the district. I have the good fortune of working with quite a few CIOs in the region, and I will say that Mr. Root is among the top CIOs, certainly in the industry, if not cross-industry in our region. So I appreciate your service there. Not only for our students and a lot of the discussion in terms of technology enablement and growth, but also for your leadership in the business systems area and bringing on Bill from the bank to help lead that with your peers, you know, in HR, in finance, and in our core systems and processes in order to really transform that to a world-class organization and set of processes supported by a fantastic set of technology. So I look forward to the continued leadership there, and the transformation will just get better there and serve our staff and indeed our students better. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Myers-Bailey?
Thank you. Having recently acquired a couple of teenagers that are using our CMS devices, I've been getting an earful of why can we watch TV on our devices, but we can't do Google searches to get the information we need to get our homework done. And all of that whole conversation or that diatribe goes right over my head in terms of why this, not that. I don't know, have you heard what I just said from others?
I can share a little bit about that. So our Chromebooks, we use a content filtering system, obviously, because we have federal regulations and morals that we don't just leave them open to search anything on the open internet. So we use a filtering system. It's from a company called Zscaler, and it's an enterprise class content filtering system. The Zscaler system allows us to configure the Chromebooks in such a way that they're filtered even when they go home, not just when they're at school, right? So we filter our devices when we go home. Now, there are all kinds of nuances to content filters. They filter on language, they filter on images, they filter on websites, and they make on-the-fly decisions. It's sort of an AI behind the scenes, right? It's making on-the-fly decisions. So things occasionally get blocked, things occasionally get through. They're not foolproof. We do the best that we can with them. Part of the reason I talked to you about that Dino tool that we use as well, too, so we can kind of continue to monitor, at least in schools. People will get frustration from time to time. They might search for a YouTube video. YouTube specifically, we use in a configuration called safe mode. And what that means in safe mode is no YouTube video will play on a CMS device until a staff member has approved the video. So before a student can watch the video, a staff member has to have watched that video and clicked the little approve button that pops up. It's a little blue button at the bottom of every video that's not been approved. And once you watch a video, it clearly says at the bottom whether that video has been approved by a staff member in CMS. So often students will get frustrated because they're trying to get to a YouTube video and they can't. But I have not heard about, I'm doing content-related research for my homework and having it been blocked. If you want to share some specifics with me, I would gladly do the research into that. But I have not heard that from the greater community.
I'd have to share the teenager that.
You may have one.
I have two of them myself, so I know.
Well, that's a perfect segue to Ms. Sanders. From the youth perspective, do you have any questions or observations to share tonight?
I guess I could speak a little to that point. Last year, I took a lot of online classes at home, but because it wasn't a teacher who would approve it for me, it was an online teacher. It was harder to do work when you got home because I took African American Studies online, so obviously there's a lot of bad content, but they do present us with videos, so when you go home and you can't watch it, you will have to wait till the next day to actually do the assignment because you will have to get it approved. So it does get a little tricky that kind of way. And, some assignments may be late, so maybe something that you could look into, because it is through the North Carolina Virtual Public School, so maybe something connecting CMS with them to talk about the videos and that kind of.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I appreciate that. And to Ms. Marshall's point earlier, the YouTube safe mode configuration is something YouTube provides to us. It's not perfect, and they understand that it's not perfect, and they've actually got a community of school-based CIOs and instructional professionals that are researching this for them right now, trying to revamp. They understand that the system has lag and it's not a perfect system. But yeah, we'll take that into advisement on the virtual high school system as well, too.
And Ms. Sanders, that is exactly why we need you here, so thank you. Ms. Ellis Stewart.
One question. Can you tell us about any pending or upcoming E-rate changes?
E-rate has not announced all of the changes that are coming forward. And for those of you that don't know what E-rate is, it's the universal service fund that you see on your phone bill. That money goes into a pot in the federal government, and we are awarded that money to use against certain types of work around technology and school systems. They used to do phone systems, now we're on connectivity. They are coming through with a new set of standards. They have not released them yet. So I don't know specifically. Like, we've asked for things of the E-rate program, like let us buy software that does cybersecurity monitoring for us, right? Like, that's a huge need for every institution. But right now, E-rate is pretty much strictly around hardware things, buying network connectivity, Wi-Fi, that sort of thing. But there's this huge need on the side over here for like forensic software, cybersecurity software, and we're lobbying them to do that. But they have not yet announced what they're going to allow in that arena yet.
Well, I know several years ago, I'd say probably 5 or 6, they were making a lot of changes around E-rate.
Yeah.
And we were pretty intentional and added a couple of things to our legislative agenda when we were doing more federal level lobbying.
Right.
And so if there's some specific things that are coming up, I would definitely encourage you to speak with the board and Mr. Jeter as they're developing the next iteration of that agenda, particularly on the federal level, so we can make sure that board members locally and across our region are lifting those things up, because that voice becomes pretty important as they get down to the wire to make those specific changes.
That's great. We would be happy to do that. I have a project manager who manages E-rate, and actually, again, because of our scale, Director Pai actually came to Charlotte last year, and I had a chance to sit and talk to him about E-rate for a little bit. It was a pretty amazing experience.
Sounds boring, but it's really not.
It's not. It's really exciting, at least for people like me.
When you're like us.
It's not boring at all.
All right. Dr. Jones or Ms. Sawyer, any questions? No? Anything else, Ms. Sanders? No? All right. Well, I just have one more quick question. So I see a lot of huge numbers here, whether it's number of devices deployed or number of help tickets. Can you help me put that into context? Do you have anything to show where we are as a technology user compared to our peers in the region or in Mecklenburg County? I would assume we're up there with the big banks and the big hospital systems. Is there any way to compare those?
In some ways, yes. So like our Oracle Cloud system, right? This is the kind of system that the big bank and the big manufacturers and global corporations use. So, right, so our ability to move to that platform is a level step up, maybe 2 level steps up from where we are to go to a system like that, because we are going to be in a shared environment now with our ERP system and our financial systems that the big dogs use, right? We're going to use the exact same kind of system that Morgan Stanley and Bank of America use up the street, right? Now, Bank of America is on a slightly different product, but it's the same type of system. So from that perspective, we are going to be right in line with these larger organizations. From a support perspective, we're not going to meet up with some of our private sector peers. I spent most of my career in the private sector, and I'll say that we run, from a support perspective, our support personnel to end user is way out of skew compared to what we do in the private sector, right? Typically, it's like 1 to 50, 1 to 75. We're more like 1 to 150. somewhere in there, and that's not counting students. So we're out of sync in that line, which means we have to get creative and automate, and that's what we do. And so the way we get to do that is through automation and creative thinking. Now, when it comes to like the Chromebook deployment, again, we're it. They look to us for Chromebook deployments. We're the gold standard for that, whether that's corporate America or educational America. We are the gold standard on that system and using that Google management environment, as well as our Apple systems as well too. We use a first-class Apple device management system, and we're able to manage those 15,000 iPads, except for the physical movement of them. I have 2 people that work on those, and one of those people is only about 25% of their time. So that basically we're down to 1 person that's able to maintain those 15,000 iPads. So we're doing pretty well from that perspective. Some places we're stronger, some places we're weaker, but as a balance, I'd say any school system could look to us and say, that's where we want to go. And a lot of small businesses and medium-sized businesses could look at us and say, that's where we want to go as well, too.
Well, thank you for that, because, I mean, obviously, in a school system, our business is teaching and learning.
Correct.
And keeping our kids safe while we teach and learn. And yet, I think it's important for anybody who's tuning in tonight or who's following this report to remember that in order to do that teaching and learning and keeping kids safe, there's a lot of business operations that goes on in the background, and it takes a lot of talent and a lot of resource to make that possible, to support our teachers and our learners. So thank you for doing it well and doing it on a shoestring, and I'm glad we had a chance to highlight that tonight.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your time and your support. And anytime you have need of me or want further discussion, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. And so now, turn to the superintendent for your report.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dashu. I have a few short items I would like to share with our board members and our listening audience. Governor Cooper has issued a proclamation recognizing October 10th, which is this Thursday, as Ombuds Day to increase awareness and understanding of the profession, highlighting the value of ombudsmen and recognizing the value of providing informal and confidential channels for addressing citizens' questions and concerns. CMS has 2 ombudsman resolution specialists who serve as impartial and independent professionals working with families, students, and staff members to troubleshoot, remove barriers, and help resolve issues. Next, I'd like to share that October is National Principals Month, and we want to celebrate all of our dedicated principals and recognize the essential role that each of them play in making their schools great. Principals are among the hardest working, yet often least recognized individuals in the field of education, and they set the instructional tone for their schools, and we want to honor them for their tireless efforts in pursuit of educational excellence. And I would like to add that this month, we will recognize our CMS Principal of the Year from among the 6 learning community finalists. Finally, I would like to give a shout out to my colleague who was in the audience, Mike Chilcutt, our Assistant Superintendent of Fine Arts Education. Mr. Chilcutt did not know I was going to do this, but today is his birthday, and I just wanted to recognize him. That is it, Vice Chair Dashu.
All right, and at this time, I will recognize any board member who wishes to make a report, and I see Dr. Jones.
Okay. And to our superintendent's discussion about the ombudsman, I really appreciate, I love that small office ombudsman. They do huge work in relationship building between school and home. I certainly appreciate that we have 2 such fine people there. We could use more. I want to speak very shortly on equity for every child. Soon we will have an equity committee. This board has chosen not to give a charge to the committee what its work should be. I sincerely believe that this is a Herculean decision to be dealt with For as I've said many times, equity is fundamental to every aspect of teaching and learning. This was underscored in my invitation to join a statewide committee discussion on AIG entitled Talent Delayed, Talent Denied, held at Duke University, essentially exploring why and how we are not serving highly qualified brown and black children in gifted and talented programs. This, too, is an equity concern across this district, this state, and our nation. It is generally practiced to place most resources around the underachievers with the assumptions that the levels 4 and 5 will do just fine. This is inequity. I worked with this population, the AIG population, at school and central office level. If there is not, by design and focused attention, a curriculum of rigor and high expectations, children of color lose out and do not thrive as well in college. They require access and opportunity, but too often these bright students of color do not get the opportunities to be challenged. They have been excluded from advanced classes. These scholars have little exposure to Bloom's hierarchy of thinking, and thankfully, this board of directors of the North Carolina Association for Gifted and Talented are committed to transforming this disparity for low-income and minority gifted students. Interestingly, this was my passion and advocacy work at the beginning of my career almost half a century ago. And to know that there has been little to no gains is just simply heartbreaking. It is my goal as I speak from this platform to advocate and advance this equity opportunity for children of color. It is my skill set to push for rigor and high expectations. We have an equity department. I will expect that this population of learners beginning in kindergarten, and this is key, kindergarten, will be identified and nurtured so that I will cease hearing my board colleagues from the first day I sat on this board asking why there are no AP and IB classes at our high schools that are predominantly black and brown. Where it begins, a K-2 curriculum for higher level thinking. Do we have such? If not, we need to be very focused on having one. This board needs to know that. This is where we must begin, in grades K-2. As an aside, Mr. Kingsley and I have had very brief conversation on how we gauge high expectations. We have rigor and we have high expectations as a mantra that we use. But how do we gauge high expectations in concrete, authentic, observable ways? Particularly as we look at higher level thinking and looking at our students in the AIG pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Ms. Cheek?
So normally in October, I would be wearing pink. I'm remiss. But I do see Marcy Beard, I see Sonia Gant, I see my colleague and dear friend, Dr. Jones, and my dearest friend, George Battle, wearing a pink tie.
And Yvette?
It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. 1,763 days ago, I became a breast cancer survivor. That is 4 years, 9 months, and 26 days. That's really important because in about 2 months, it will be my 5-year anniversary. And when you hit 5 years, they say you're cured. And you can quit worrying every day, every hour, every morning, every night, and every time you feel a sore spot anywhere in your body that your cancer's back. So I've got 2 months, and I'm praying hard that it's going to get there. I raise all this to you to say I was blessed by having early detection of my breast cancer. I was diagnosed at stage 0 with a mammogram. I had that mammogram in the month of October of 2014 after I sat at this dais and asked all of you to do that too. Lo and behold, in November, they came back and said, yours showed something that we don't really like and we need to have surgery pretty quickly. So it saved me. And since then, I've had so many people come up to me because I've been very public about being saved by early detection to tell me that they had had their first mammogram in years, or they opted for a 3D or an MRI that they'd never done before. And I'm going to keep saying it every year and every time I can, because every time a woman or man goes to the doctor early to be detected for whatever health issue it is, the chance of survival and great health in the future is better. So I urge all of you all to remind all the females in your life that you love and care about that this is the month to schedule your appointment if you haven't done it in the last 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cheek. Mr. Strain.
So, Ms. Cheek, thanks for your comments. As a stage 3 survivor myself, I would just encourage men to also be checked.
That's right.
Thank you very much for your words. Nearly 2 years on the board have reaffirmed for me the following. We have 3 primary responsibilities as a board member. Number 1, policy and direction of this district. Number 2, oversight and responsibility for all decisions, actions, and results of the district. And number 3 is to listen. On point number 3, it doesn't matter if it's a matter of bus stop safety, overcrowding, candidates that wish to serve on our Community Equity Committee, or best use of our facilities to provide educational services to our communities and indeed to our students. Also on point 3, we listen to our CEO, our superintendent, and his or her leadership team who serve as our advisors, as well as leading the execution of the district. On June 4th, this board voted to uphold the former superintendent's recommendation for Ray Farms as a K-8 magnet relief school. 6 short weeks later, Superintendent Winston ably took the helm with a new leadership team. In the spirit of listening to both our constituents and to our chief advisor, I look forward to the majority of this board agreeing to ask the superintendent to revisit the previous recommendation and reaffirm with his new leadership team how he would recommend Ray Farms be used in the best interest of the community and district, consistent with the spirit, if not the letter, of the bond. With over 450 community members asking that we commission this review, let's show our community example of how well we listen to them, as well as to our current superintendent and chief advisor. I look forward to discussing this at our next board meeting and hope you'll support me in asking the superintendent to reassess with his leadership team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strain. Ms. Byers-Bailey?
Thank you. On a lighter note, West Charlotte celebrated their homecoming last weekend. And my class, I'm a West Charlotte grad, and our class decided to enter a car into the parade. And we were told to follow the dog that looks like a lion. You will not believe what we saw. And I don't normally post on the internet, on Facebook and all those, but I'm going to post pictures of this dog that looked like a lion. She is a service dog in the Hartsfield, Atlanta airport, and she serves with her father, who looks like a zebra. She is the sweetest person, but she looks like she had a huge brown mane. When I looked at her, I thought somebody has just pasted hair on her. That was her hair. Her owner had combed it out so it was this long. She colored it all brown, her body, she's a poodle. She colored the hair around her head all brown. She colored her body beige color. She had a little brown pom-pom on her tail. They had grown the hair on her muzzle longer so that she looked like a face of a lion. She had a black nose. The only thing that was on that dog that was artificial was she had 2 little ears. And she had put some mascara on her eyelashes. She looked like a lion. And when you see the pictures that I'm gonna post, she was incredible. So I was obviously spellbound with her. And then as I finally decided to, okay, stop playing with this dog, I looked around and there was some cheerleaders. And they said they were bulldogs. And that got my attention. So I walked over and they were giving their little cheer and they were saying, we're bulldogs and we don't play. And so I asked my teachers, do they happen to be the Walter G. Byers Bulldogs? Because my dad loved dogs, and Bulldog is their mascot from the Walter G. Byers K-8 Academy. They were precious. And there were cheerleaders all over the place, but of course, I'm just going to focus on the Bulldogs, right? But it was a wonderful afternoon. Then we did some tailgating, and then they played the ball game. But it was a great afternoon to spend with my alma mater.
That's beautiful. Well, when you share those photos on Facebook, I'll share them out to my people too.
Okay. That dog was incredible.
Anyone else from this side of the dais? Ms. Sawyer?
I've had a great time visiting some schools in my district on the east side, from the Big Dig at Devonshire, where they've built a brand new outdoor classroom and gardens, to Winterfield Elementary, and to Idlewild Elementary, where I got to experience their active hallways. Idlewild is being intentional about putting the joy back into student life, whether it's through their active hallways or their B3 lab, brain, body, and behavior labs, which they now have 2 of, to help students manage themselves and regulate by using physical activity and allowing kids to be kids. And Ms. Denian said she had her best back-to-school workshop for teachers, where she encouraged them to remember what it was like to be kids by playing games and kind of lightening it up a little bit, and remembering that we're dealing with kids, not automatons. I'm looking forward to attending the Hispanic Heritage Family Night at Cochran and IMEC this Thursday night. And on Saturday, I'll be on a panel sponsored by Public Schools First NC in Raleigh on the impact of privatizing public schools. And I'll be on a panel with other board members, and our own Justin Parmenter will be on a panel with teachers as well, along with other board members and teachers and scholars from around the state. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
No? Ms. Marshall, do you have anything? All righty. Well, Ms. Sanders, do you have any reports for us tonight? All right. Well, I will just share that our community partners at Trees Charlotte this past weekend, they have planted thousands of trees throughout the last few years on at least 60 Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools campuses. And this past weekend, they planted 300 more on the campus of J.M. Robinson Middle School. I had the opportunity to attend, and I wanted to thank Principal Miliotti and PTA President Elizabeth Campbell for the warm hospitality. It was a really joyous event. And so to the hundreds of students and families and volunteers who took part in planting trees at J.M. Robinson on Saturday, I just want to thank you all for devoting your precious time to building a healthy community. It was a real bright light at the end of a long week. And with that, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
All righty.
Make me laugh.